Welcome back into another episode of the Huskers Radio Network podcast. I'm Jessica Coody. Well, a couple of months ago, we learned of a very scary ordeal involving All-American wrestler Peyton Robb just right after the NCAA Championships went through a really serious medical situation. He's come through it. He's on the road to recovery, and he's joining us here in studio to give us an update. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, just getting back to normal, rehabbing daily, and just kind of getting back to what I would be doing if things didn't happen the way they did. But yeah, I'm good.
There's been some news coverage, I know some social media coverage as well on what you've been through, and some people might know the details, some people might not. So I wanted to kind of go through all of that with you. But I was telling you before we started recording that we had several people text in asking about you. We had people on our YouTube stream asking about you, and I know you felt the outpouring of support from everywhere. What's that been like to experience that?
Yeah, it's been great, especially in the wrestling community. I got to see all people from all different teams come together, even though we compete against each other all year round. Kind of came together as a collective and showed support, and so that was really cool to see. And everybody that's not in the sport of wrestling did the same thing, so it was awesome.
So you go to the NCAA Championships, and all year, you were a favorite to compete for a national title. I know Mark Manning has been saying that for a couple of years now, that you are going to be a guy that contends for national titles. So you go in. At what point did you start feeling like something was off? Was it during NCAA Championships?
Yeah, so I had actually during a warm-up between the quarterfinals and semifinals at nationals, I showed Mikey I had a bump on my leg, or a bruise that just looked like a welt, like I got kicked, but it was pretty tender, and so that's the first time I noticed anything. Nothing with my whole body that was happening yet, but that's the first thing I noticed. And then by the nighttime and the next morning, I could see it had gotten bigger, but it still just looked like a bad welt, like I got kicked. And it still wasn't affecting my whole body yet until the last day of nationals, and that's when I could really feel the effects throughout my whole body, with like fever and chills and shakes and that kind of thing.
Was that kind of hard to deal with, that being that you are on this stage, and I know how bad you want it, and you want to win and compete for this team, and you guys were very much in contention to finish pretty high on the podium, as well as just that overall as a team? Was it hard to manage, hey, I got to take care of myself, but also, hey, I want to go perform for my team? Yeah,
because it's like in wrestling especially, well, probably a lot of sports, but I feel like in wrestling especially, you got to that hard nose, all right, you just got to go out and be tough and attack it. But when I was feeling the way I did in the last match that I wrestled, or before the last match that I wrestled, I was like, dang, I don't want to act like a wimp or anything, but I just feel terrible right now, and I just don't know what it is. But I just couldn't keep my body warm. I was shaking and stuff. I had coats on in the tunnels under at the arena, and just trying to stay warm. But yeah, it was kind of tough to manage in my head, and that's really the reason I went out for my last match, is just trying to be tough. But yeah, and then after that, I was like, I can't do another one. So I was like, it's not gonna be good for me if I do.
So after that, you come back from Tulsa. What was the process after that? You went downhill and thought, okay, something's wrong. I got to go figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So I was pretty sick on the bus ride back. Just laying down the whole time, throwing up a couple times, and then we get back, and I get back to my apartment, and I'm just laying down for a couple hours, and my girlfriend saw me try to walk to the bathroom, and she could tell I couldn't really walk barely at all on my own, and so she was like, you gotta go back to the hospital. And so I went to the hospital, and they figured out all these problems with my vitals and stuff, and my leg was super swollen and red from the knee down. And so yeah, it was good that I got into the hospital when I did.
So at what point did you realize how scary the situation was, how serious it was?
Yeah, definitely when at that moment when I went back to the hospital, it was pretty bad, and they were telling me all my vitals were off, and I was having problems with my heart and my kidneys, and hypotensive, and all these things that they had to figure out before they can even really go into doing stuff with my leg or figuring out that. So that's when I knew it was pretty serious.
And what was it exactly? I mean, that they told you that you were suffering?
So I had in Tulsa. I went to the hospital in Tulsa just to check it out, and they gave me oral antibiotics for it. But so it was originally strep cellulitis, and then it turned into necrotizing fasciitis, which is pretty terrible infection that has a pretty bad fatality rate. So
yeah, it was like 1 in 5,
yeah.
right? So they get you kind of under control as far as vitals go, and then at what point did they? I mean, because there's some pretty gnarly photos out of what they had to do to your leg. Was there a potential that you weren't even going to be able to keep your leg?
Yeah. So I was there for about a week, and then that's when I had my first surgery, and the orthopedic surgeon came in and was like, "Yeah, we gotta start surgery on this like right away." And so, and he just told me, he's like, "I'm gonna have to take out whatever is wherever the infection is." And so and they didn't know how far it had gotten in, if it had gotten into any joints or the bone or anything like that. So it was like whatever it had affected, then they were gonna have to take it out. So I knew that was a possibility, but I was pretty optimistic. I always say I was cautiously optimistic about how surgeries would go.
When you're going through something like that, and for those of us that haven't been, what's your thought process like of what am I going to be like in the future? How could this affect my future? I mean, you got so much potential on the wrestling mat, and I know you have a lot of big goals there. Were you ever worried about any of that? Was your mind ever going there? What was your thought process throughout of everything?
Yeah, it was like I was kind of just like, I mean, whatever happens, it has to happen. Like, whatever they have to take away from my leg, it has to be done for the sake of living. And so I just kind of had to make peace with that. And but I obviously wanted everything to go right so I could wrestle. But I just had to be mentally prepared. Just whatever has to happen had to happen, you know.
I'd read somewhere where you had said that doctors told you that because of your peak physical form and you were in shape, that it allowed you to get through it, where a lot of people, you mentioned the fatality rate, that's probably what helped you survive it.
Yeah, so when I got there, I was already in such bad shape that I think I could have been a lot worse if I wasn't in like peak wrestling condition the way I was. It could have been much worse. And I think the same thing with the mental side, just the mentality of sports kind of just helped me, like always saying you're going to get through this, or never, this is a bad saying for this, but never say die is like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, just being able to handle the adversity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So then you get through that. What's it look like after that? You come out of the surgery, and what did the doctors tell you about everything?
Yeah, and so my leg was still there, so I was happy about that. And then they just told me they got like most everything out. I'd have to go back in for multiple other surgeries just to like clean things up and continue to take a little bit more out. But after a couple surgeries, I was pretty much in the clear. Obviously, I was in like bad condition. Like I wasn't feeling good at that moment still. Like, you're in the hospital, you're having these surgeries, so you're feeling kind of crummy and stuff. But I was past like the worst of it. And then I go through a couple surgeries in the first 8 days or so, and then I moved over to the hospital that's down on O Street, St. Elizabeth's, and I'm put in their burn unit because they were better equipped to deal with like skin graft situations where there's open wounds. And so I was put in their burn unit, and they did a great job. And I was using their hyperbaric oxygen chamber for treatments, which is supposed to help with like cellular regeneration, that kind of thing. And so I was well taken care of while I was there, and that kind of helped me get through it.
So where are you at now in that rehab process?
Yeah, so last week was the last. So I as an outpatient, I kept going back in for the hyperbaric chamber treatments. I had to do 30 of them, and so that was like 2.5 hours of just laying in a bed and in this thing a day. And so I just finished those last week, and then now I'm just doing rehab and until I am ready to go. Because I lost some ankle mobility in my leg because they had to take some muscle out when they were taking out infection. And so I'm just trying to rehab to get back to as good as best I can to get my leg back to its form.
I'm sure there's no timetable, right? Is it all just, a process that you got to be patient with?
Yeah, it's like my skin graft is pretty good. It's just a matter of mobility and strength in my leg and how much I can do with that. And so that's just kind of seeing where things go, how quickly they can progress or how slowly they progress them. So that's kind of just what we're doing. We're week to week, just seeing how things go with that.
I know how hard you work and how much of a competitor you are. Have you had to balance, like, hey, not pushing myself too hard and going about this the right way? Yeah,
so it was really tough to be, because I was on crutches for a while after I got out of the hospital, and it was really tough to not be up and around. They want me to have my foot up all day and just laying down. So I'm a pretty active person, so that was pretty tough to just lay around all day. But I knew that that's what would be the best, to not mess up anything that I already had going for me.
You mentioned at the beginning the wrestling community and how supportive you guys are, even when you're competing against each other. When you go through something, everybody rallies the troops. What is it about the wrestling community that's how you guys are?
I think wrestling is just like a grueling sport that like practices. It's a long season, and so everyone understands how much the sport means to each other. That everyone, when somebody goes down, it hurts everybody, and like you don't want to see that happen to anybody. And we all show a lot of respect for each other because we know how tough it is. And so I think that's part of the reason why I kind of just got the respect back, and they were just worried about me.
When I know people want me to ask, and it's all a process, but is the goal to be back for this coming season?
Yeah, I mean that's the goal. We just still got to see how things progress, right. But yeah, that's what I'm working towards. You had such a great season, and this whole team did, and maybe surprised some people too. But you personally, before you had the injury and at NCAAs, what did you learn about yourself as a wrestler and competing throughout this whole season? Yeah, I was just really competing at the top of my game, and it was really the first time I looked at myself where I was like, I could get it done, I could win it. And well, I knew eventually I could before this year, but this is the first time where I could feel it. Like I'm winning these matches. I'm winning these high level matches all year. And so it was a fun season, especially with Mikey doing the same thing. So that knowing, that feeling that you just talked about, does that give you motivation too? Is that pushing you too throughout this whole process to get back to that feeling again? Yeah, I just want to get back to full form at the end of the day. So. What about this team too? Because I talked to a lot of the guys came in here week after week, and how special it was to be in that wrestling room and this team, how united you guys were. How, from your perspective, how special was it to be a part of just this group and what you guys did this past season? Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, we all fed off each other, starting off with Liam Cronin, he's our fire starter, and so it was really great to have him starting us off back, because 2 years ago we were missing him, and so it was great to have him to start us off again. And then yeah, we just had a bunch of guys that had the same common goal, and so we really meshed together. And that's the thing I think about most with our team is we all mesh together so well. We all have a common goal and basically a big family.
Got so many guys coming back, had a lot of young guys, and even, you know, get Ridge back as well. How excited are you about what this program could potentially do in the future? Yeah,
super excited. I mean, this is my last year, and so I really want the team to do well, and I want to be a good leader for the younger guys, because we do have a lot of young guys on the team, a younger team, and I think I'm going to be the only sixth year left that's still around. So it'll be a lot of weight on the shoulders, but I think it's something that I'm ready for, and it's going to be fun.
It was really fun at NCAA's. You know, those first couple of days, you guys just kept rolling, and everybody was winning, and everybody was taking notice. Social media was blowing up, and people were paying attention. And I think even the wrestling world was like, "Oh, look at Nebraska." What was that like being a part of that, and how much fun was that to be a part of that?
It's super fun. I mean, when your whole team is winning, there's nothing better than that. Like you just feed off of each other, and then it just motivates you. Like I see Liam win, and then Brock sees Liam win, and then I see Brock win, and you just feed, like, you got to keep the ball rolling. And so it's really cool when you get on a roll and everyone's winning.
Well, what could Husker Nation do for you? Is there anything that people could do for you throughout this process?
Just go watch wrestling next season.
Absolutely.
I've had plenty of support already. I think I've asked enough at this point from everybody that showed support, but other than going and supporting the wrestling team, then that's about it.
And what has this program meant to you throughout this whole process? How have they helped you through it, your teammates and coaches?
Yeah, my coaches and all my teammates visited me while I was in the hospital, even when I was in pretty bad shape, and so it meant a lot that they were there for me. Just really showed how close we all are, and so it was really that's a positive note of what happened. Is like it really brought everybody together, and it's great, and they're all happy to see me back in the room doing rehab and that kind of thing. And so I get like it's hard to be away from your team for so long, and so it was great to come back and see everybody every day now.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm sure this will continue to evolve as this process continues to move along for you, but what perspective have you gained throughout this process?
I think it's just that wrestling has taught me a lot more than just wrestling. It's taught me the mindset that I need, whether it's through something like this or just in life, just continue moving forward. And so I think that's a lot of sports in general too, is it teaches you a lot of life lessons other than just the sport that you're learning.